Bassem Youssef. He's like the Egyptian Jon Stewart, I guess. It's like the best way to...
The shorthand he earned.
The shorthand, yeah. And didn't Jon Stewart do a documentary on him or something? I think that's why I say that.
Oh, maybe, yeah. That's how they actually started this interview, was Patrick Bet David going, so you're the Egyptian Jon Stewart. How'd that happen?
Oh, God. And so he's down in the vault at, Patrick Bet David. It's literally in a bank vault, their studio.
Because
that guy's got a lot of money.
Money, baby.
Funny.
Bank means money.
He's got money. And he does actually have a ton of money from like some type of like
insurance
scales scheme thing. Sales. Anyways, he's got a crew of guys who are supposedly his experts. And they're not that bright. This is the guy who said that something about like when I had said that we should make billionaires illegal, that I wanted to arrest all billionaires, and he didn't get the joke or something. I can't remember the exchange exactly.
They love ranking case studies.
But this guy is not quite as smart as he thinks he is, but I think he's supposed to be the smart one. Here we go.
Aside in Israel of what they think is actually going on there. You talk about the genocide in Israel or in Gaza as if it's just a matter of fact. Well, let me show some stats for you, because after you see these stats, Israel's the worst genociders ever. The numbers, according to the world data, if you trust data, between 1990 and 2022, the Palestinian population overall went from 2 million to 5 million, okay? Pretty bad at genocide if that's what's happening right there. In Gaza, it went from 645,000 to 2.1 million.
This is a common Zionist talking point. I think it's helpful for everybody to understand that when we're talking about like this stage of genocide or the active killing of genocide, we're talking about what happened after and what it continues to happen after October 7th. But they always try to bring it all the way back to like the Nakba, or this is the one time that the pro-Israel Zionists decide that it's time to look at history before October 7th, when they want to count population increases of Palestinian people over time, because every population has increased over time. That's what's happened in the world.
Always unable to conceal their frustration that the population numbers are increasing.
Yeah, interesting.
Before we get into why populations increase in refugee camps or whatever, we'll go a little bit further.
It's 3x. That ain't genocide to me. Now, to 20,000 people, 30,000 people needlessly killed during this bullshit war that was started by Hamas, is that horrible? 1,000,000%. And any Jew or any Israeli...
Give me that number again. 600,000 to what?
645,000 to 2.1 million.
From what to, from when to where?
This is in 1990 to 2022.
Do you know why they increased?
Because they're having babies like crazy.
No. You see, this is how like when you watch data while being uninformed makes you look very stupid.
Tell me why. Tell me how the population has gone from 2 million to 5 million.
Yeah, because most of the 1.5 extra million didn't come from Gaza. They were pushed away from other parts of Israel. So most of these people, they have increased because of refugees being kicked out.
If you're talking about the settlers, those are tens of thousands. Stop
I'm talking about
those aren't millions of people.
Dude, listen. My wife's family is not from Gaza.
Pause it for 1 second. Pause it for 1 second. There have been 700,000 settlers, if I'm not mistaken, over the past 2 decades that have moved into the West Bank. Is that, I'm not even sure, is that...
I thought he was talking about the Israeli settlers to Gaza that left, and he's like, well, I know that they left already, but it's unclear to me what he means by that.
There were tens of thousands of settlers in Gaza, but there's 700,000 new settlers in the West Bank, and they took a lot of property.
But either way, Youssef is not talking about them.
Right. I mean, but
he's talking about people displaced, Palestinians displaced,
and to be fair, I think that like the accusations of genocide really are a function of the at least 24,000, probably closer to 35,000. Yeah. We don't know. Up to 100,000 of people who are either killed or injured or unaccounted for in Gaza. That's when you start to hear the real claims of genocide. Prior to that, it was just ethnic cleansing, which I think that like I can't imagine anybody with any sense could deny that there hasn't been a project of ethnic cleansing since 1948. I mean,
but we have moved on. Yeah,
this is like, you can look at the statistics. You can look at how many Jews were in Palestine Mandate, whatever you under the Ottoman Empire, under the British Empire. The numbers were, you know, maybe in single digits and sometimes in the teens in terms of percentage until 1945. And then the numbers shoot up. And so the idea that you want to parse, like, what about genocide pre the massive bombing campaign? Hundreds of 2,000-pound bombs. 85% of the population turned into refugees. That's not by like, here's a leaflet, please leave. That is bombs falling on apartment buildings in the most densely populated area of the world. I mean, and let's be clear, we have massive, extreme, some are saying now the most extreme cases of potential starvation.
Yeah.
And disease that we are seeing. So this is ongoing. I mean, Israel could stop with their bombing campaign today, and all of the death and destruction and disease that we see, that is a function of Israel. But go ahead, just go back a little bit, see maybe we can make out what he's saying with settlers.
Tell me how the population has gone from 2 million to 5 million.
Yeah, because most of the 1.5 extra million didn't come from Gaza. They were pushed away from other parts of Israel. So most of these people, they have increased because of refugees being kicked out.
If you're talking about the settlers, those are tens of thousands. Stop
I'm talking about
those aren't
Gaza.
millions of people
Listen,
moving
my
their
wife's
houses.
family is not from.
Does he think that there are Palestinian settlers?
Well, he says
Yeah.
he says the tens of thousands, which I think he means the Israeli settlers that were in Gaza and left.
That's what he means. They don't count
Yeah.
the West Bank
But I don't-
settlers, or
but-
they don't count like the basically expulsion of anybody who is not, for the most part, a white Jewish person within the
that
state
still
of
doesn't.
Israel.
I think
still
what-
doesn't make
The
sense.
math sucks,
what
but
Youssef
that's
is
what he's-
saying,
yeah.
what Youssef is saying is Palestinians were dispossessed and went to Gaza as a refugee camp.
Well, Gaza started as a refugee camp,
Right.
essentially.
Precisely, and what Sosnick is saying is like, oh, you're saying that Israelis went into Gaza and drove the population numbers up. I think that's honestly what he's saying.
I
But-
don't think he could be that dumb. Who knows? Maybe he just
maybe, yeah.
misspoke. It's crazy.
But just one note is like, it's what Youssef says about a lot of Palestinians from other parts of Palestine moving to Gaza as a refugee camp. And also people should look at like what happens to fertility in refugee camps. Is there's a lot of pressures similar to pressures on women in underdeveloped areas that aren't refugee camps. And like, that's not conducive to like, say, lowering fertility. There are pressures on women to have kids because there's not other stuff going on. You're in a refugee camp. This is true throughout refugee camps.
But right, again, though, the genocide claims have been a function of the
Yes.
ongoing bombing, like that this is a real attempt, and also a function of members of the Israeli government saying, our plan is to essentially wipe them out.
Gaza, and yet they found themselves in Gaza because they were sitting in other cities and villages outside Gaza. This is the systemic pushing of people from other parts of Israel, pushing them
That's
to
not
Gaza.
millions of people. This is why I said that you're
1.5
intellectually
million.
dishonest
No,
or intellectually lazy.
No.
That's not the cause of millions of people being moved. I'm familiar with the settler stuff
this
and the
is,
disengagement
you don't know
in
it.
2006.
You don't know what you're talking about.
It's-
Oh, pause
These
it.
are
Yeah,
people-
that is
millions of-
exactly what he's saying. When he says 2006, there were Israeli settlers there. The Israelis unilaterally pulled out of Gaza, essentially without coordinating with any Palestinian, political body in any way. This was actually, in some ways, seriously encouraged by the Bush administration. They all thought that they could get in there a weaker Palestinian Authority, and they didn't. They blew it, and Hamas won by 45% of the vote. And in part, I mean, I don't know how they expect anything else. I mean, Hamas was already organized as a sort of like a social services political body, and as well as, you know, a militant force. And that's what happened. But I don't understand his point about the settlers would increase the numbers.
He's so dumb. He thinks Youssef is saying like, oh, you think he thinks Youssef is saying the population of Gaza increased because of those settlers.
I don't get that.
Not
I don't
remotely
even get
what
how you
Youssef
could
is-
understand that, but go ahead.
Yeah.
The people?
What,
Okay.
the people who belong to Gaza are 700,000 people. Right now, Gaza is 2.2 million. That is not birth rate, my friend. These are people pushed from, and by the way, that's not the first time. 1948, at the night of the declaration of the State of Israel, 1.5 million Palestinians were like moved overnight. So it's not the first thing. So before you giving me numbers you want to appear smart, know what are behind the numbers, because these are not people giving babies.
Okay.
These are people being pushed from other places in order to be part of the open air prison that it is.
Okay, so then,
it's not
if you want to fact check me, let me fact check you. Anytime that there's numbers increasing, Bassem, going from 650, 450, whatever you want to call it, to 2 million, however it happens, that's the exact opposite of a genocide. So the whole genocide, the whole open air prison
displacement,
are
my
talking
friend.
points.
Displacement.
Are talking points of BS.
No,
and this is why I said you're either intellectually lazy or you just hate Israel.
Basically, this whole thing about you hate Israel and hate Islam, this is a very lazy way to talk to people.
It's kind of like your thing.
What did I tell you that is so lazy? What did I tell you, like you're fucking racist?
Because you've already said that multiple times.
No, I didn't say.
Yeah, you said that multiple times.
I said your undertone is racist. No, that's not what.
So not me, but what's going on inside of me.
And someone like the way that you
does
analyze
not
numbers.
understand what undertone means.
Yeah. I'm a little annoyed by like the fact that we're not necessarily challenging the notion that the South Africa case is mostly hinging on the genocide actively beginning after October 7th, because that makes it incredibly clear what we're engaging in, especially if you want to bring up the articles of genocide that are at issue here, because Israel meets 4 out of 5, killing members of the group, the specific group, B, causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group, C, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. 85% of places of homes, people have fled their homes. Almost the entirety of North Gaza rendered inhabitable, and also the inability for people to get food, medicine, being hindered specifically by Israel. D, imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group. And there's one functioning hospital left that Israel is continuing to surround. That's about targeting births, as well as the NICU babies that were found decomposed because they were deprived of energy to keep those children alive, let alone pregnant people in Gaza as well. So the third is forcibly transferring children, or the fifth, sorry, children of the group to another group. And that's not happened yet, by my understanding, even though Israel does imprison minors without recourse. But you need to meet one of those in order to meet the standard of genocide.
This is a straw man argument. I mean, but also peppered in with just almost inexplicable ignorance. It's hard to follow, but go ahead.
Yes.
Is very lazy, because again,
really, when I actually use stats and data from
Let me hear
the
what
most
he's gonna
credible
say.
sources,
Then
that's
we'll
lazy.
wrap
these
up.
are numbers that were outside
You've
of
said
Gaza.
no stats. You give a fucking opinion
It's like
the whole
saying
time.
that California has
Whoa.
increased triple, or people in Texas increased because of birth rate. No, they increased because people from California started moving voluntarily. You
That's
have
good.
pushed 1.5 million people outside of Gaza, inside of Gaza, in a matter of 12 years, and that's why the number has inflated. It's not because they were giving birth rate.
So then where's the genocide?
They were evacuated.
Where's this alleged genocide
That's
happening?
happening right now under your eyes.
So as of 3 months ago, there was no genocide. So it's just a new.
Well,
thing.
we didn't actually use the word genocide before 3 months ago.
Okay, but you've
we
been
didn't
calling
use
for
it.
the river for the
we
sea
didn't use it
for decades.
All right, Potsy. See, so the guy just basically just gets it handed to him.
Yeah.
Oh, you weren't saying genocide. I mean, it was ethnic cleansing, and then he just
There we
turns
go.
it. You've been calling for the river to the sea. I mean, this is
Which obviously
so
means
disingenuous.
genocide.
The combination, though, of getting indignant and
Right.
saying, I'm doing stats and data, when you don't know the first thing about the numbers here.
No, it's the settler thing still, I find, like, just absolutely mystifying.
Yeah.
He totally did not understand what he was being told, I guess.
Yeah.
This
then
is
accuse
the
him of being
problem when you
dishonest.
put a couple of numbers in a guy's hand and he has no idea what he's holding.
I mean, we played a clip of them last week ranting about the wokeness of Lululemon or whatever, and how they disrespected the founder, the guy who said that what
You missed that, Sam. So they had the
Thank God.
Lululemon in 2015 distanced himself from their founder, who said,
Libertarian.
among other things, like, was sneaking Ayn Rand quotes into the things, and also said that I named it Lululemon because Japanese people have a tough time naming that. They're like, why
of
won't
the
they?
L sound.
Why won't they respect
Yeah.
the founder and how he's run this business? And actually, if you look at Lululemon's performance since 2015, it's been just
skyrocketed since. But they were saying that wokeness is hurting it financially when it's the exact opposite. Anyway, they're the numbers,
Go ahead.
guys.
Let's just watch a little more.
Also, Israel have a lot of maps that is putting in the greater Israel from the Nile and the Euphrates. That's genocide from 5 countries there. And this is not by people in the street or people on YouTube. These are ministers. These are officials in the official government of Netanyahu. If you have someone, an Arab president, like the Egyptian president or the Jordanian king, tell you from the river and the sea, it's like, oh, it's the Arab authorities. You are basically comparing people on Facebook and the official viewpoint of the Israeli government. You're basically comparing apples to oranges. It doesn't make any sense. You're basically comparing activists with people with power, with money, and with weapons. So I don't know how come you're comparing
So
them.
what's your solution? Because you got all these answers and you have no solution. What's your solution?
Oh my God. This is like guys in full retreat.
I demand answers.
Okay, so you answered
So
those
you
things.
have answers.
But where is
You're
your
so
magic
smart.
wand?
If you're so smart, why is it a problem still?
Where's your magic wand?
It's so amazing how impatient white people or
No,
Westerners
he's
get.
got no choice. He
Well-
had 2 things that he was supposed to hit.
But they literally can barely conceal their contempt for the whining, like non-white person.
Oh, of course.
That's what it is. It's like,
But the
get
problem
the
this
hell
guy has
over
is
it.
2 talking points, and when he runs out of that, all he can say is, "Well, then how will you solve this?"
Right. But we need to solve it by people like you accepting exactly what we're saying.
The former head of the Shin Bet had a good explanation on how to solve it. You release Marwan Baghdadi, the most popular Palestinian politician in the country, who's been in jail for almost 20 years now, and you allow them to build a political movement that has the promise of some, either I'm skeptical, but a 2-state solution or a 1-state solution. That's just like, listen, the fascinating thing about this is that the same people who will say Israel must go in and militarily defeat Hamas, wipe them out. We're 100 days into this, and Hamas is still firing rockets as you've got the IDF all throughout the country. They don't have the ability to do it. Israel doesn't have the ability to do it. Israel knows this. They don't have the ability to do it. They're in there now to punish Palestinian citizens, probably from day one, frankly. And that is what the agenda is. And there is no, even from Israel's perspective, there is no peace and security with that strategy.
Yeah.
It's the same as England and Northern Ireland. Like, eventually you're going to have to treat each other as people you can do political agreements with, as opposed to just terrorists and oppressor. And that's the way forward. It's pretty simple.
Yeah. I mean, they're
Just gotta want to start.
they got sick of mowing the lawn and they're trying to resod it at this point. And it's up to the international community to stop them. And the U.S. is not doing a great job.